Hello and welcome to our fourth verse in 1 John. This is a short one today, and it finishes up the introduction to 1 John. Believe it or not, when we get to verse 5, the Greek's going to get much simpler. So if you haven't started till now, it's going to get pretty easy once we leave the introduction into verse 5. Now, as usual, let me give you a moment. If you are a little bit more advanced in your Greek, let me give you a second to see if you can translate this verse. And we're back. And so here is my translation of this verse. And these things we are writing, we ourselves are writing, in order that the joy of us might be having been fulfilled, or might be fulfilled. Okay, so how'd you do? I might mention that if you were raised on the King James, or if you happen to get a hold of the Textus Receptus version of the Greek New Testament, Textus Receptus is basically the Greek text that was developed by Erasmus in the early 1500s and then became the basis for the King James. You might know this verse as, these things we are writing to you in order that our joy might be fulfilled. So there are some manuscripts that instead of the joy of us have the joy of y'all. And so this is a fairly easy variation to explain either way. So in New Testament Greek, we generally pronounce this haimon. And if it began with a nupsilon, if it began with a U, we would pronounce it humon. So haimon means of us, humon means of y'all, okay? So the King James has humon, of y'all, and the modern eclectic text, or the edited text, has of us. The manuscript evidence is, again, depending on what you think of manuscript evidence. If you go from what the majority of textual scholars believe, then this has the better manuscript support because it is attested in two old codices, or books from the 300s, Codex Vaticanus and Codex Sinaiticus, both have of us. They both have this reading. The majority of manuscripts and the later manuscripts have of you, plural, which is why the King James has of you, because it represents the later developed text from one perspective. But we can, what we do is we try to figure out how these errors arose. Somebody miscopied it, and so how did it happen? And the answer is fairly easy to see, because as the pronunciation of Greek changed, both what we call haimon and what we call humon came to be pronounced hemon. And so let's say somebody is reading aloud the text and you have a copyist copying it. And so the copyist copies down, the copyist hears hemon and writes down what we would say humon. So the reader was reading what we would say is haimon, but he pronounced it hemon. And then the copyist heard hemon and copied it down humon, because both are pronounced the same. I don't know if I made that clear, but it's a fairly easy to explain where the mistake came from. The question is, which was first? Now, the variation with this word, is it we are writing, we ourselves are writing, or is it we are writing to you? I suspect that if this had been, if this change was made first, and it said something like, these things we ourselves are writing in order that your joy might be fulfilled, where somebody might smooth it out to say, these things we are writing to you in order that your joy might be fulfilled. It's fairly easy to see how it might have changed into some of the different, what the different copies say today. Well, okay, let's move on. I want to give you, I guess, as usual, the more detailed translation. So if you take the first line, what is tauta? You know what tauta is? Toots and touts are this and these. And so this is a form of the word this. Now, what is this alpha here? My Greek students of late will know what this is a bingo situation. Neuter plural alpha, bingo. Okay, so that's these things we are writing. That's the next slide where I do the grammar. Anyway, hold that thought. These things we are writing, we ourselves are writing. Notice that the subject is we because of the men here. We are writing. And so in English, we would say, well, this must be the subject because it comes before the verb. So it's, and these things are writing. No, we know what the subject is by the ending on the verb. And this is definitely a we ending, a wee little ending. So it's we are writing these things, and this is accusative. This is the direct object. Greek can put the words wherever it wants. It's the endings that tell you how it's functioning. And then hemes is the nominative of we. It's not, we don't need the nominative of we because the ending men has we in it. And so the fact that it's here is extra. It puts a little umph. And we are writing these things. We ourselves are writing these things. So a little emphasis on the we, because this isn't necessary. It's not necessary, it's extra, and therefore it puts a little umph. We are writing these things. We ourselves are writing these things. Okay, now this next line, short verse, Hina, what kind of a clause does Hina introduce? It's in order that clause, or a so that clause. It's a purpose clause, as we'll see in the next slide. So in order that the joy of us might be fulfilled. This is a complicated construction. On the next slide, I'll ask you what kind of a construction it is. We have a form of the verb to be, which is in the subjunctive because Hina says, subjunctive is coming, subjunctive is coming. So we have a form of the verb to be, and we have men are passive participles, right? Notice the difference is men, when men means we, it's the very end. When men is a participle, it's not quite at the very end. So this is something like, so that the joy of us might be having been fulfilled. The emphasis on the might remain fulfilled. You might even translate it that way, in order that our joy might remain fulfilled. Okay, now let's go into the grammar. I've already headed down this road. Let me go ahead and put it on folding out real quick. Okay, now we've hidden it from you. So getting back to what I was saying in the previous slide, what is tauta? It is a demonstrative pronoun, a this or that pronoun, these or those pronoun, a pointy pronoun. And then this is a neuter plural alpha. Bingo. So these things, we might say, these things. Okay? And these things we are writing. We ourselves are writing. So the ending, what does the men tell me? The men ending tells me it's first person plural, we, and then also that it's active. What does the omicron tell me? Well, the connecting vowel's not fried, so it's indicative. And then it's from grapho, nothing's been done to these letters, so it's present. So this is a first plural from the ending, active from the ending, indicative from the omicron, present of grapho because nothing's been done to graph. Okay? And as like I said, the hemes is a personal pronoun, which means we, and since it's in the nominative, it puts a little umph behind it because we don't need it. The we is in the ending here, so it's extra. Okay, finally we get to this kind of clause. What kind of a clause is it again? It is a purpose clause. And when I see Hina, I'm expecting subjunctive is coming, subjunctive is coming. And this is the subjunctive. This is the subjunctive of a me, which means I am, in order that it might be. It's a third person singular, ace a, except it's been fried. It's a fried. And the oda is hung along there as a subscript hanging on for dear life. So this is a present subjunctive, third singular from a me, might be. And this construction, what kind of construction is this? A form of the verb to be with the participle is a periphrastic construction. Form of the verb to be and the participle. Might be having been fulfilled. The parsing of this, can you parse it? Well, I noticed there's the letter here got a little beside itself. That happens where? Happens in the perfect tense. And then the ending has been shoved straight on the stem because this is play ra o. And so the fact that there's no connecting vowel that has been shoved right on the stem, when does that happen? It happens in the perfect, middle, or passive. Let's go with perfect passive here. And of course, men are passive participles. So it's a perfect passive participle. What is eta? Well, I know from my nouns that eta is a feminine nominative singular. Any periphrastic participle is going to be nominative because this to be verb is like an equal sign. It's like a predicate nominative in a way. Okay, so this is a perfect passive participle, nominative feminine singular, from plerao, might be, having been fulfilled, might be, so fulfilled in the past and remain fulfilled. You might remain fulfilled, we might translate it. Okay, this has been, and of course, here it is all together. Let me go ahead and do the letters for those of you. So for those of you who don't know hardly any Greek, you've been going, what? Okay, so now we're at the part for you if you're just learning Greek. You should know this word by now. It's chi, and, kappa, alpha, iota. These letters are tau, alpha, upsilon, tau, alpha. Tau, ta. Next word. Gamma, rho, alpha, phi, omicron, mu, epsilon, nu. Graphomen. Sounds like a super. I'm Graphomen. Next word. Eta with a rough breathing mark, rough like the sea. Hey. Eta, mu, epsilon, iota, sigma. Hey, mace. Iota with rough breathing mark, nu, alpha. He, na. Eta with a rough breathing mark, hey, form of the article of the word the. Chi, alpha, rho, alpha. Kara is joy. Eta with a rough breathing mark, hey, mu, omega, nu. Hey, moan. Eta with a iota subscript, a. P, epsilon, p, lambda, eta, rho, omega, mu, epsilon, nu, eta. Pe, ple, ro, me, ne. Pe, ple, ro, me, ne. Okay, well, there's our verse 4 for today. We've gotten through the introduction of 1 John chapter 1.